Hello and welcome. This is a deck profile of a fabled deck. I've had a lot of success with it, and Alex St. Louis helped me build it, so I've been top 8ing consistently, and the draws are pretty good. It's very resilient, and here's the deck list. 3 fabled grimro, 3 fabled crus, 3 fabled ganashia, 3 the fabled cerburrel, 2 the fabled chawa, 1 fabled kushano, a fabled catsith, 1 the fabled nozoochee, 3 the tricky, 3 reborn tengu, 1 level eater, 1 guardian of the order, 1 glow up bulb, a morphing jar, a snipe hunter, a gorz, and that's it for the monsters. For the spell cards, 1 for 1. Monster Reborn, Mind Control, Darkle, Pot of Avarice, Heavy Storm, 2 MSTs, 2 Monster Reincarnation, and honestly the factor that makes this deck win, treacherous travel. I don't see any reason to run more than 1 trap in the fabled. The point of the deck is to strictly be an OTK deck, so treacherous travel will get you there. If you just set this on the first turn because you have a terrible hand, or you draw in the middle of the game that you tried to go off and they stopped you, this card will get you out of it. Most of the time when you miss, they'll be at less than 2,000 life points, meaning that any monster that you draw will kill them. So that's the main deck. Now for the extra deck, for the Fable deck, 1 Formula Synchron, 1 the fabled unicore, 1 armory, 1 Ally of Justice catastor, 2 fabled ragin, gaia knight, brionac, ancient sacred wyvern, black rose dragon, arcanite magician, stardust dragon, scrap dragon, treacherous, and fabled leviathan. Another thing that I've noticed about the fabled is that a lot of people are running 3 fabled chawa, where I've changed one of the fabled chawas out for a nozoochee. Nozoochee is a non-tuner monster that does the same thing that chawa does in most situations. It's all about pitching another one of your fabled monsters that has an ability and getting a monster into play. Though most of the time you already have enough tuners to support anything that you'd want to synchro, and nozoochee with a cerburrel will give you a unicore, or it'll help you get into your treacherous because it's 2 stars, and a lot of the time getting stuck with an extra fabled chawa doesn't do much. And another thing that really a lot of people overlook about this card is it's got 1200 attack. Also, I've noticed a lot of decks aren't running 1 for 1. 1 for 1 is pretty good in the fabled deck because of the amount of targets you have without even trying. Now, most traditionalists are running 3 chawas. I'm running 2 and a catsith, which still gives me 3 targets there, but I've also added a glow up bulb and a level eater. Level eater will give you a lot of good plays. It seems that Dandelion is on the decline, but in the time that it was, this was an all-star. Because you have a synchron monster that you don't care about its level because you're about to kill your opponent. This gave you an extra monster to get rid of a dandy token. Getting rid of one of his monsters meant that you could attack through for a lot more damage. Now, Glow Up Bulb is a card that I'm thinking about getting rid of from the deck. It's good, but with the presence of XYZ monsters, I find that some of the slots that I've devoted to stepping stone monsters, like Armory and Gaia would be better served as a Leviair and maybe a Utopia, which would give the deck more options. But for the moment, I'm happy with the way that it's running, so I'm not going to change it. Why fix what's not broken? And so that is why I think that 1-for-1 is a great card in the deck. Now I know that 1-for-1 does not trigger any of the fabled abilities when you use it, because unfortunately 1-for-1 sends it to the graveyard and not discards it. But in most situations you're going to be pitching something that you can't play anyways, or you don't want to play. Like maybe you get stuck with a gorz, or you get stuck with a reborn tengu in your hand that got bounced. There are enough monsters in the deck, considering you're playing 25, that this card will automatically get you one of the tuners or a non-tuner to complete a monster. And lastly, these are 3 cards that are absolutely amazing in this deck. Most people have fabled catsith on their sideboards. Why not put one in the main deck? You're already running 3 grimro, meaning that in most situations if you need it, it'll be there for you. Having 1 means that you can answer certain trouble cards that are already on the field without even thinking about it. Now, Morphing Jar. Everybody understands that Morphing Jar is essentially a game changer for both people. If you flip a Morphing Jar and you're both on nothing, your opponent goes back to 5 cards, and yes, you can lose the game. But in my experience with Morphing Jar, what happens is your opponent will flip it during battle, pitch away 2 or 3 cards, and then set some stuff, which really doesn't bother you because you're getting 5 new cards. And with 5 cards, this deck can turn it into like 15 or 20 cards, because everything that you do is just getting a progressive advantage on the game state. The only trouble with the Morphing Jar is that if your opponent's playing Veilers, I would immediately move it from the main deck to your board. There is no point in playing it if your opponent's playing that kind of disruption. And lastly, Guardian of the Order. Guardian of the Order is a card that a lot of people have overlooked in this deck. All of the fabled monsters are light monsters. And it's level 8, which means with a cerburrel, you get a I have a new game plan. This guy, if your opponent can't deal with it properly, will give you 3 fabled monsters. And 3 fabled monsters will give you just about everything in your extra deck, as well as your main deck. I mean, add 2 grimros that you've already used, or whatever you have in your yard, to your hand, along with any given non-tuner monster. It gets there. Now, the process of siding in this deck is really, really difficult, because you have to decide based on what your opponent's playing and how actively they're using their sideboard, whether it's worth it in order to switch out your main deck into your secondary game plan, which becomes a beatdown deck. In your main deck, you're already running a couple of dark monsters, so you might just want to swap in the BLS and the Chaos Sorcerer or 2. But my experience, if you're playing against something like Hero Beats or any of those variants, they're going to bring in Banishers of the Radiance or King Tigers, and King Tiger literally stops just about everything in your deck other than Fabled Grimro and the Fabled Ganashia, which means that the vast majority of your cards are going to get destroyed for no reason, keeping you off the board. Also, they move in their Thunder Kings if they weren't already in the main deck. It seems like a card that everybody is playing today, and just about everything here will deal with a Thunder King.